the countdown. It's the
The countdown.
countdown. Okay.
Okay, hey guys and girls. This is Teja and this is our book podcast. Maybe it's a book club or book discussion where I guess we're trying to discuss ideas and notions that we think are beneficial to us and also just have fun. So that's me.
Yeah, I'm Deepak. Yes, and welcome to our book podcast. Sure. To be determined, name to be determined. Yes. So today I think we're going to talk about a book that I really liked. And talking to Teja, I think Teja, you also really enjoyed reading this book.
Yes, this was one of the few books that I did a review on.
You
Actually, it might be the only book that I wrote about.
Yeah, they generally say it's just like a good way to understand what you just read from a book or read in a book would be to create or write a summary or write a review or write even just a paragraph on what it is, your thoughts and feelings about the book. But that's much hard, that's much easier said than done to even write anything. So yeah, good
Yeah.
job writing something about it.
Well, it's gone because the website went down and they never removed it. But
What can you do?
here's we'll do it
Yeah,
again, wiser and smarter because that was
yes.
older.
That's the hope anyway. So the book we're talking about today is Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. Um, yeah, I don't really even know where to begin. I think the author somewhere in the book he says, or somewhere towards the start of the book, he says, there are 1,000 self-help books. If you want to make money, there's 1,000 books on money. If you want to lose weight, there's 1,000 books on losing weight. If you want to attract love into your life, there's 1,000 different books on doing that. But ultimately, he said like this is the book that underlies all those other books. The book of slight edge, the principle of slight edge. And to summarize it, he essentially says, you do the thing consistently.
hmm Um, so I think basically it's mastering the small, simple things that seem so insignificant that when compounded over time create success. I'm reading off my notes. So basically success is completed over time.
Yes,
Um,
yes. I like what you said there about the compounding bit, and I think this is something we all tend to glance
underestimate.
over. Yeah, it's this thing about compound interest. There's this quote gets attributed to Albert Einstein a whole lot. The eighth wonder of the world is compound interest, and I don't know
Mm,
I don't know if it was actually him that said it, but it seems, a lot of people talk about how the human brain can't really comprehend exponential growth. We can understand linear growth. Like we can understand 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. Sure, that all makes sense. I keep adding 2.
mhm.
We have a much harder time grasping exponential growth. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 2, 128, 256. I think, like this kind of thing we have a much harder time grasping. And I think this is as you said, this is one of the big points he was trying to make in his book about compounding. You do the small things and then they actually just don't add up linearly, they add up in a compounding manner. But the unfortunate thing about compound interest is like it starts out really slow until, until you hit terminal, and then it just goes, just blasts off. Yeah. um,
Exactly. You need that delta.
yeah.
Um, so I think one of the things even mentioned in the book itself is there's an example. I don't remember exactly what the example was, but let's just say there's a king and he's very grateful for one of his citizens or whatever, and he offers him either $1 million right away and or a penny that doubles every day, and that penny doubles every day for a month. And I mean, I'm sure we all know where this is going with it. Um, so one guy takes 1 million and gets it
Mhm.
right away, ends up broke eventually. And the guy who waits a month and uses that penny, because a penny is really not that much, but a
Mhm.
penny in 30 days is what, like $10 million, 10 million or
Yeah, it
something.
was it was way
So,
more than a million anyway.
and I I would never have thought that. Like, not off the top. I would have been like, okay, maybe it's at like 200,000. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
not like,
If someone was just like, do the math, just like without actually doing the math, it's like, what do you
yeah,
think a
you have
penny
three
double?
seconds.
Yeah, what is it? And then you're like, oh, yeah, 200,000, sure. You know. Yeah, yeah. When I heard that story, I was like, well, clearly, if you had a calculator, it would have
Yeah.
been very easy. So I wonder if the first guy just thought that he could make more money using $1 million if he just took it right away. Like, did they both do the math and just see that, well, this.
Definitely not. I mean, the example is a king giving it to like I think either a peasant or a farmer that's in debt, and
Right, right, right.
I, I don't think they were
Yeah, yeah,
calculating too much,
yeah, of
and I don't
course.
think most people do either, right? Even right now.
Yeah,
Um,
of course, of course. Um, yeah, that's that's an example that's not very in some sense he gave that example at the start of the book, and that's one of the examples he refers to, and then he also refers to this one with this, I think, a water lotus or a lotus, and it doubles every day. And then he's like, for the first 10 days or 15 days, you barely even see this lotus covering any amount of the pond. But then after
mm,
a month, it's covered the whole pond. And, he
um,
keeps going back to these examples. Um, the money example is just, it's one I find that's not very practical. Like, it's something that doesn't, it's not something that
it's not
happened. It's not going to
it's not
happen.
practical.
No, no.
But the water lotus is like okay, but how are we gonna use that water lotus?
Yeah, what are we gonna do with the water load?
Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
really, it's just to get an idea of what you
Absolutely,
might
absolutely,
made. Yeah.
absolutely. So, I tried to. So when I read this book, it was about 5 years ago. My brother told me about the book, and I read it, and it was honestly a life-changing moment. And
Yeah.
since I read the book, I've tried to employ the slight edge philosophy in pretty much everything that I do. Any domain of my life that I wanted to make progress in, I thought, well, I'm going to just apply consistent routines or habits to it, and then just see where it takes me. And I think, just if you're going to keep in line with talking about finances, which is kind of crazy. Today there was a 1% interest hike.
Yes.
Oh
Yes. I
my
saw
good.
that.
Holy, that was kind of a shock, I must say. Anyway, I
Double
think now,
expected.
oh my God, yeah, I remember reading a few weeks ago that the Canadian government or the banks of Canada were not going to do anything more than 0.5%. They're like, you know what, we are not
Hmm.
going to do anything more than 0.5% because that is crazy. Um,
Hmm.
I think they didn't give specific reasons why, but they said they did not want to do something so drastic. And then, yes, we all knew that it was going to come out today, the price increase, the rate increase. Um, and, they said, fine, we might do 0.75. The rumors were calling for a 0.75. My jaw hit the floor when I saw 1%, 100 basic point increase.
Yeah.
That's nuts. Anyway,
It's,
the reason I went on this tangent is because now I feel
yeah.
like is a very relevant time to be talking about finances and possibly a slight edge philosophy to
Oh
do with
yeah, that's great.
finances. So um, yeah, I think we hear Earl Nightingale, or this is a saying from like way back when, from the 60s, if you will. They say, save 10% of every dollar you make, and
Hmm.
that's cool and all. But how does that really like factor in? I have a hard time thinking of, because that seems like a good place to employ the slight edge philosophies. Like, every time you make a dollar, put away 10 cents, invest 10 cents, do
Hmm.
something, put it into a savings account or something. But that I found didn't really work so well for me. Um,
Hmm.
One, there was never any kind of like to be honest, actually, it's because I could just never really get excited about the idea of just investing 10%. I was just like, oh, that's such a low amount,
Yeah.
such a low amount to invest. And there have been many months, because of the kind of lifestyle that I live, there have been many months where I made no money at all. Like my income was zero. And
Yes.
during
10%
those,
of zero.
yeah, it didn't feel like I was,
Little contribution.
you know what I mean? Minuscule.
It's actually not even a slight edge contribution.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, it kind of negated the whole thing. I was just like, so it didn't really feel like I was working on the slight edge philosophy in that way. I found
Yeah.
another way, one that I really enjoy is to track every penny, man,
Uh,
manually track every penny,
oh, okay.
because now we
Yeah.
have all these apps that can pull in this and pull in that. You have
Yeah.
Mint and Lint and whatever else, and
Even your own bank app might have those features.
yeah,
So,
exactly. Even your own bank app might have those features. But what I found was just like manually tracking every single
yeah.
expense, income or expense, gives you this opportunity to reflect on it and think about, well, was this really a purchase that I needed to make? What was the story? And then you get to reflect on it at the end of the month, and you get to keep reflecting on it. I found that to be quite a helpful. So that's how I employ the slight edge philosophy with finances.
I think one of the ways, I mean, I'm not really employing it, but I guess I kind of am, is I try to push most of my purchases at the same place, like a gas station or groceries or restaurants, through one card, because that card gives me a lot of cash back for that. And with that, it's like 2%. Used to be 4, but now it's 2. And I just see that savings over time. And if you don't touch that, I just see how much just like 2% back is adding up.
Yeah,
So
man.
it's like a way I'm contributing 2%.
Yeah, yeah, in a way. So yeah, so what happens with that cash back? Do they put it in a separate account, or do you
Yeah,
just?
they put it in a savings account.
Oh, that's
So like
cool.
this is with my Tangerine. So
Okay.
Tangerine, I have the Mastercard for cashback in certain categories, and then the regular savings or a checking account, and then the cash goes to that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool and to see how this money just grows. And it's one. I'm assuming that the savings account is like doesn't really have an um it's not a high interest savings account, is it? Or is it just?
No, it's like I don't even know, but I don't think it's 1%. It's probably like 0.6%.
Oh, okay. You're not.
It's nothing. Like it's no. I'm just saving dollars, bro. I'm losing to inflation.
You're losing to inflation. Yeah, tough to beat on inflation. But really, when you think,
Realistically, I should be taking that money out and depositing it right away.
yeah, yeah, moving it into some like into a direct investing account or something. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's really crazy. I think when we have a conversation in 10 or 20 years time, and if we keep building this habit of like putting away some money, well, I just said, that's not the slight edge philosophy that I employ.
Mhm.
It's But by tracking every penny, I think what ends up happening is like you end up spending less money, or you're more vigilant about how you spend your money, which
Well, you're conscious.
exactly. Exactly. You can look
You
and
know.
then be like, oh, this is the eighth time this in the last week that I have put in something for Tim Hortons. Oh, that's interesting. Do I really need to be
Yeah.
do I really need to be, putting all this into Tim Hortons?
Yeah. And like for me, I find because I don't do that,
Mhm.
I really have no idea what's going on in my thing, and then I find out like whenever I check my account, which is every few days or so, and
Mhm.
then I'm not conscious at all. I don't even know what's happening,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think I'm I'm in the majority of people. I don't think most
Yeah.
really know
Yeah,
what they're doing to their.
it was when I started budgeting, it was in 2017 when well, I feel, I really enjoy this whole topic of personal finance.
Mhm.
As as I shared with Teja before, what I think money makes the world go around. Not in like a very like greedy, miserly sort of way, but it's like a form of energy transfer. Money shows kind of the energy that you have accumulated by whatever
It's a form
means,
of value, right?
essentially, right? So it's not just like, oh, it's all about money. No, it's anyway. Let's get past
Yeah.
that kind of
Okay.
that way of it. And it's like, yes. So in 2017, I decided, I'm going to become quite financially literate. I want to know, and I looked through all this stuff on personal finance. And the very and they kind of lay it out as a pyramid, and they say at the bottom of the pyramid, number one thing is you got to you got to spend less money than you make.
I think we should do a podcast just on that.
Yeah, like if you can't do that, it's like you don't pass go. It's done right there. And then after that you get into this all this thing of like paying off debt, putting away money for an investment, then investing, and then whatever else. But yeah, at the bottom of it, it's this whole thing about budgeting. Can you spend less money than you make? And since then I've been trying to refine my like budgeting process. I used Yanab. You'll need a budget for a long time. But then I learned how to really use Google Sheets. So then I created my own finance tracking app that just tracks everywhere I can put.
Oh,
Oh yeah, there I can put all the things that I need. I catered it to my specific needs, so I can see how my investments are growing, how my loans are decreasing, how my bank accounts, like what transactions are there on my bank accounts, how much I spend
wow. This sounds
every.
amazing.
Oh, it is my pride and joy. it's it's my baby.
I
Yeah.
actually need this.
Yeah, and the thing is like it's very personalized to what I need. So I
Mhm.
made something that I could just that was personalized to me. But the drawback of this, and I think this is going to be a drawback that most people find, it's manual input. It doesn't pull the data from somewhere else.
That's the limiting factor.
But
And
but
manual input is probably the problem with most people for most things.
yes, and exactly, because I was talking to my dad about this, and I told him it is the manual input that is where the where the money is. Because you reflect, even if it takes me, today, a banking fee came up for 1095, and to input that into my finance tracker took about 10 or 15 seconds. And just the fact that I was reflecting on this was like, okay, this money came out from RBC banking fee. It's some 1095 that I'm losing or I'm spending for this thing. This is something that I'm conscious of. Every month this money goes out. If I were to make a different change or move to a different bank account or to a different bank, this is something I know. Yes, you can go and reflect on all of these things, look through all your accounts and be like, oh, there's 1095 coming out every month. But it's different from actually just going through that introspection every single time another another input or another expense is made. Um,
Yeah,
it keeps you quite in it, and you just know.
I yeah, yeah. I think it would be very useful, but I think for me, like I wouldn't be able to do it just because of the manual. But if I did that, oh man, my life would be so.
Yeah, it's a thing, right? It's. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's easy to input it manually. It
But
takes.
maybe this is somewhere where we could employ the slight edge, right? Like maybe instead of trying to do it so that maybe just doing it every week, and then you get the week a slight edge.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like however it gets done. So my with finances specifically, how I do the slight edges, every transaction gets put in.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever it gets put in, that's fine. I generally, because I'm quite anal, I do it. I do it like almost
Yeah.
instantly. Like I come
No,
home and I
like
put it.
I feel like it's kind of like it in a way. I feel like it's easy for you because you're so like organized in the other forms
Hmm.
of life, so it's not as like a random person. Like it's not.
Yeah, yeah. The rest of my life, it's not chaos. It's quite organized. So yeah, to come and do this,
Yeah.
yeah, which is quite
Let's
different.
go.
Yeah, let's
I
go.
feel like we should go back to the slight edge stuff.
Yes, not finances. Yeah. So I guess that's how I do it with finances. So what other ways in which do you employ slight edge?
Okay, so for me, I mean, as of recently, um, when I say recently, I mean this year, I've started. So last year, or a year, 2 years, I guess since the pandemic started, I became really obese.
Hmm.
So obese type 1,
Hmm.
um, category 1. So basically I was, I think, like at my max. I'm not 100% sure, but like 205, 206,
Hmm.
something like that. And then slow, and then at a certain point, I was like, okay, I need to get this sorted. But I also know that I'm not going to necessarily be able to deploy large amounts of energy, focus, and intensity right away. But I also at the same time, I do know that I I was aware that I'm gonna lose the weight, and I've done it many times before, sort of. But I've never been this obese, but I've done it before, so I kind of had some confidence from that. Um, so I wanted to do something that I was like, I'm gonna do it in a way where it'll be easy for me, but I'll also be able to use this experience to talk to other people, so that there's no excuse
Yeah, yeah, okay.
to, to why we can't get on this or
Hmm.
they can't get on this. Um, so with that, all I did, I have an iPhone, and my iPhone is usually on me most of the time. So in that iPhone, there's the health app, and in the
Hmm.
health app, there it counts your steps or pedometer
Hmm.
and shows your distance as well, whatever. So basically, all I did was I'm gonna start walking um, every day. Um, my goal was to get to 10,000 steps a day at a certain point. Um, but like I never really cared that much about it. I cared more about the graph going this way.
Hmm. Hmm.
So basically, just increasing over time. And one of the reasons why I feel like I could employ the slide edge here is because before I was a potato
Hmm.
and I barely moved. Like it was Netflix, TV, computer, phone, just one form of lounging or the other. Um, so with the walking, I just was like a few steps at a time. And the good thing was like whatever I'm doing, like when I'm chilling or just wasting time or just on my phone, just reading, I was like, or listening to podcasts or music, I was like, I can do this while walking and it doesn't impact my experience
Hmm.
of my listening to the music or the video or the podcast because it's not like I'm running,
Hmm.
so I necessarily don't need to watch out for certain things because I'm moving relatively slow. So basically, I guess in the April or March, I started doing that more regularly, and then as you get the progress and you start completing it, it keeps you wanting to do it more and more.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
long story, I'm going on a spiel, but basically, I went from 205 to I guess 158 or 156 as of recently. There's no goal weight
Mm.
specifically going forward, but the reason I'm telling you the numbers is just because like when you really look at it, it's like if I was 205, that's 200, and I lose 50 pounds, I lost 25% of my body.
Yeah. It's not a small number. Not a,
Yeah.
no, that's a big number. Yeah.
So, and then also the other thing about doing it is like when you start doing that and you start getting progress, it gives you confidence and trust in yourself to do it in other areas.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, and that kind of spills over into other aspects of your life, right? They talk about this keystone habit. If you have read books on habit formation, they say there's like
Mm,
there's a central habit, and once you start doing this habit, it's just like all other aspects of your life kind of just start changing for the better.
exactly.
Hmm.
And that's how I
Yeah,
was thinking of it. Like this is like my anchor habit. So
yeah,
whatever all the other habits are, just go do a walk a day, or
yeah,
just
yes,
do that.
yeah,
And
exactly.
every other habit is like a slight edge, other habit, edge on
Yeah, yeah,
edge.
exactly. And then if everything else gets too overwhelming, it's like, you know what, you're just going to default to just doing the basic, just walking, just go for a
Which
walk,
you can do.
which you
Like
know
there's
you can do.
no, it's not hard, it's not difficult. It's just go through the motions. You can also waste your time doing it on your phone or whatever. Like
Yeah,
honestly, like the other thing is if people talk to other people, like you can have a phone call while walking.
yeah.
Like
Oh,
a
yes.
lot of my steps are calls.
So what happens? You're walking outside, I imagine.
Yes, yeah.
So what happens during the winter time, especially in the frigid tundra
That's
that is
yet to be
Canada?
decided.
Oh,
We
yes.
will see next year in the spring edition.
What happened? Yeah.
220.
Just go
This
back the
year,
other. Yeah.
I'm gonna lose even more.
Yes. Yeah, that's the
No.
thing. Yeah, walking, there can be challenges like that, right, with weather and stuff.
Well, see, okay, so even here, like, so for example, once I get the walking, and one of the reasons I wanted to do the walking is because I didn't want to start running or start doing other things because I didn't feel like it would be good for my joints because I was so heavy. And it's like, this is a good way to get healthier. And then I can push these other things more comfortably.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so with doing this, I started going to the gym. I mean, like, energy levels get better, this or that. So even when the winter comes, like I have the gym now, and now that I'm in motion, like I can get my steps on a treadmill there, or or I can do it out. Like I want to do it in the winter too, to be honest. Like I'm just cover up in this. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there can be some way, even getting a treadmill would be quite good.
over here, like I'm lucky because I'm in the GTA or close enough that like there's community centers where you can go, and it's basically like a big loop where meant for people to walk or run,
Oh, yes, yes, a
and
walking
it's
track.
indoor.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, that would
So
be
I can
quite
just go to
nice.
one of those.
Yeah, that would be quite nice. And you can go to a different one every day or something, so you don't see the same
Exactly.
people, or if you want, you can see the same people. I don't know. I don't know what your cup of tea is.
No, it doesn't matter to me. I'm
Yeah,
happy to just do it. If I see different people, great, great new experience. If I don't, I have my phone to distract me if I want to. Like that's
yeah,
fine.
yeah, exactly.
Because one of the things I was thinking about doing with this is like because I'm here in the GTA, I was thinking about going to different parks and doing it. So I just get more experience with
Oh, yeah, that's really good. And you get to see like different, yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, so your slight edge ultimately is like I'm gonna go for a walk every day, or was it as much as I can, or
um initially it was just to get to 10,000, and I was like you can get to 10,000 quickly because regardless of what you are, I mean, unless you're have other things going on. 10,000 is like an hour and a half to 2 hours, and you can break
hmm.
it up in parts of the day. Um, there's no reason to not get there.
I see, I
Um,
see. So
so
have
just
you?
cover that.
Yeah. So do
Some
you?
days I did it inside my house.
Oh yeah,
Like
just walk.
I,
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh yeah, because you can do. Yeah, ultimately you just need to get the 10,000 steps, an hour and a half of
yeah,
movement in some way.
man, if I talk to Vinod for an hour,
Yeah.
it gets a lot of steps, bro.
Yeah,
That's a lot of steps.
you got talking for an hour, you got a lot of steps. Yeah, you got a lot of mental steps too. Yeah, that's cool. So then you have been able to like hit 10,000 fairly consistently.
Okay, so for my month of June, my average was exactly 10,000
Okay.
and like 300 or 400. But like now, like my steps are going to like 12,000, 14,000. Like
Oh, wow.
they're like I'm actually like for something I'm kind of trying to hold myself back because I was like, am I doing too much?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, that's
Because I'm
all
like,
it.
I've done a lot already. I don't want to.
Yeah,
I don't know
because
what too much is.
that's the worst, right? It's just like you put in all this energy and then you get injured. That's just like
Yeah.
sucks. Yeah.
But the good thing, and the reason once again why I did walking is it's low impact. Everyone can do it. Like most
Yes.
people can do it.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
it's hard to get into.
Yeah, yeah. It's quite hard to get injured walking. Unless you start becoming quite obsessive and walk like 8 kilometers every day, then maybe.
That essentially kind of is 10,000 steps, right? It's like 6.7 or 7 kilometers.
Sorry, I meant 8 to 10 miles. Yeah, I remember when Pokemon Go came out. My brother and I were quite we liked it. So we walked all around Dublin trying to catch
Yeah.
Pokemon and stuff. And it was just way too much walking. We walked upwards of 20,000 steps on some of those days. And
Oh
that
man.
was that was too much, you know.
Yeah.
But I think you can definitely like work up to something like that. I think
No,
really,
definitely.
Yeah,
And like the
sure.
other thing that I have now that I use as an alternative is I have a rowing machine. I've had a rowing machine for a long time that I didn't use, but
Hmm.
after deploying this, I deploy that as well.
Oh, okay.
So even if I, let's say I can't get my walk, I can turn in my slight edge routine or habit into rowing for 30 minutes or an hour or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like you're stuck to just be like, okay, I have to walk, do this bipedal motion. No, it's just like I'm going to do some form of
No,
physical activity is the ultimate slight edge.
exactly. And it's the most easy motion is because like I can't do rowing for an hour right away. Like,
No,
like
no,
there's no way I would be able to do that.
no, no, no. That's difficult. That'll be quite strenuous. Yeah, going for a
But
walk
now
is
I
always
can.
good. Now you can. Now you can.
So
Yeah. So, are
yeah.
there any other domains that you employ the slight edge philosophy?
I can't think of anything else. I mean, because like this turned into like, because I'm just focusing initially on activity and I guess like health in terms of I just want to get my weight right, and then also want to have activity for energy levels. The only other time I can remember using the slight edge was when I had an exam that I wanted to do well in, and most of the time when I was in school, or doing any exams for that matter, I would try to cram everything into the last few days.
Ah,
And when I
yes.
say I would try to do that, I would try to do that kind of intensely. And
Hmm.
then I've been burned a few times, so like
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
should learn my lesson, but like, and I and I'm getting better at that.
Hmm.
But so there was this one important exam that I had coming up, and I wanted to do well. So for that one, what I did was I just was consistently, I guess, studied for 2 to 4 hours a day,
Hmm.
like in a focused-ish manner. Like I
Hmm.
had it planned out and with other people.
Hmm.
And then I performed far better on
Yeah.
that exam than any other one. And that was the difference in like maybe like 4 week preparation versus few days.
Yes.
And not only that, it was also easier to like do the exam itself to feel after it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know. There's that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think studying is a great place to employ the slight edge, where it's just do it consistently. Just stick with the notes, just do the thing consistently.
Here's one thing that I noticed. So, because we were in school together, um, and we were in a professional program, and I we tend to know kind of who are the high performers or people who are high in the rank, uh, for a class or whatever.
Hmm.
One thing I
Hmm.
do notice is during exam season, exam time, like they don't change their routines in terms of their gym or that type of stuff. I see those same people consistent, like whether it's January or right before finals. And I feel like they're using the slight edge of that
Yes.
to reach the results that they're reaching. And that's something I've just seen, like,
Yeah, exactly. When I became a lot more serious about studying after after medical school,
yeah,
as opposed to during. And when I was studying for the licensing exams, and as you said, my routines were the same. The day 2 weeks before the exam, or 2 weeks before the exam, 2 months before the exam, 6 months before the exam, 2 days before the exam, it was all essentially the same. There was still the same amount of physical activity. Ironically, the only difference was the day before the exam was a very light study day. There was like no real,
yeah,
it was just kind of, okay, let's just chill, review some notes, versus before, when the day before the exam was when the learning happened. was then
exactly.
was when all of the learning happened. And one interesting side effect I noticed from that is, I held on to a lot of my medical knowledge, even though it might be a while before I review a concept, or it might be a while before I look something up. I still have a lot of that knowledge just in my head, just kind of pretty well, constructed in my head. Yeah, and I think that is testament to just putting in that effort over how many ever months, or yeah, how many ever months. Now, obviously, if that's not reviewed, it'll gradually
Yeah,
decay. But I remember, going into like or GE, those exams, and like a week later, it was just gone. I couldn't
no.
tell you.
And here, I feel like you would. be good to talk about this is like, so when we did those exams, we were juniors, so we were just very new to the school, so we really don't know what we're doing.
Hmm.
Um, and like a lot of, I guess, the tactics people think is just to study as much as possible or do read a lot, which, I mean, that's debate. But if had they used something like Anki, which is basically a spaced repetition program, and they just use that consistently for an hour or two versus blindly reading for 6 hours a day, the results would be different. Like you could speak on that because I feel like you know a lot
Oh,
about that.
yes, yes. This whole thing about active learning and passive learning, you know, yeah, it's whenever I studied, um, I think one of the books we will talk about eventually is this book, Deep Work by Cal Newport. I think both you and I are very excited about talking about that book. You know, like Slight Edge, I read Deep Work and I used Deep Work for pretty much all of my learning since then. Really, anyway, yes, there. If you're doing deep work, it can't. I couldn't. My limit for deep work. So Cal Newport makes the case like you can train yourself to do 4 hours of deep work a day consistently.
Mm-hmm.
I have trained myself up to around 3 hours, and like that's not. I'm not comfortable at three. I think really around two and a half is where I hit my limit of how much deep work I can put in a day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in from my experience that is plenty. You know, I studied for when I read deep work, you know, I changed and I had to write the EE. I changed my study strategy. You know, I told my parents, my brothers, like, you know, I'm going to try this new study strategy. I'm only going to study for 2 hours a day, and I was essentially laughed out of the room. You know, and then
Laugh really loud, I'm sure.
yeah, they laughed. They couldn't even believe. They're like, you're not serious. You know, get serious. Do the studying. And then I was like, okay, I guess, you know, time will tell. The author made some good points. I believe it. I read it. It makes sense from my experience of working with it over the last couple of weeks. It makes sense. And then, you know, then my marks came out, and the only one laughing was me. Well, my parents, well, my parents also laughed because you know they shared in my joy. They're like, "Oh, he got a good
Yeah.
mark. Who cares how he did it? He got it." You know, yeah, I think you know there are many different kinds of active study strategies, and some get a bad rep than others. Like reading, for example, gets a you know some learning that I did was strict reading, but there's a difference between reading to just like your eyes passing over a page versus like you're
Yeah.
reading. You read a sentence, be like, what does the sentence actually mean? How does this fit in with what I know? What is the author trying to say in this sentence? How does this reform previous mental models that I've had in my head? You know, that kind of reading is extremely difficult. Like you're not getting through many pages at all in an hour. You might get through like 2 pages in 30 minutes, maybe depending on what you're reading.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's just like, well, how much? But see, these things with studying, see,
Yeah.
Anki forces you to almost do that because it's asking you questions. So you have to think, you know, it's,
Exactly. So it's great. It
yeah,
makes it easier for you, and I it is the slight edge if you use it right. It's like the
yeah,
perfect slight edge. Like
yeah,
that's
exactly. For the step one, you know, someone is going to medical school now, and they're essentially, you know, they know that they're going to write the step one,
which is like
especially,
the most feared or like
yeah,
held high standard exam in the world.
oh, yeah, exactly. Step one, you know, probably second and second only to like I think there's the CPA exam. I think that's another big one for accountants or chartered accountants,
Okay.
CPA one and two. Yeah, these exams are
Yeah.
quite difficult. Anyway, if someone was going to medical school and was going to sit the USMLE step one, I would tell them, you know what, bro, start doing Anki. Day one, just start it. Just do the Anki. In 2 years' time, you'll be a walking, you'll be a
Yeah.
walking textbook. You will know the thing.
And
Yeah, yeah.
it's no different than working out.
No
You
different than
know, like
working out.
no
Exactly.
different.
Yeah, they're all these things, right? It's about just being consistent. Now, the thing is, you know, when you choose to be consistent with some things, well, what I found out was like there's only a few things you can actually choose to be consistent with. It's very hard to be consistent with many things. And
Yeah.
then you have to start making some hard decisions about, well, like what it is that you feel like what are you going to choose to be consistent about.
Hmm.
And actually, this is the next book I want to talk about. This book called Essentialism by
Oh, I
George
haven't read it.
George McCowan, I think. Essentialism, yeah, Essentialism, yeah, by Greg McCowan. And he essentially talks about, you do the essential things. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think, it's great to employ the slight edge philosophy, but if it's employed to like 18 different things, then
Oh, you can't. You
it's
can't.
just there's just it's not even a matter of time.
That's
It's
not
just
even an edge anymore. Like,
it's like the slight brick.
I mean, like, let me go back to my notes. Like, for example, it's mastering small, simple things. You
Yeah,
know, you're
I,
not doing 18.
yeah, exactly. There's no capacity for that. So maybe that's the next book we talk about, essentialism, if that's what you,
Yeah.
unless you had some.
No, I'm done.
Oh wait.
No, no, I'll get through it. One other thing that, like how we said, for me, like the walking,
Hmm.
was like an anchor habit to do certain other things. I found while doing this and just trying to get that habit, it allowed me to eat better because now I'm more conscious of this one decision to walk, which is
Hmm.
progressing me.
Hmm.
Then it kind of bleeds into the rest. Like for example, when I come back from walking, will I now eat a snack that I normally would eat? Probably not.
Yeah, exactly,
You know,
exactly, exactly.
because now I'm already thinking. I was like, okay, well, I just did this, so.
Yeah, yeah. And then this positive momentum just snowballs, right?
But that's like compound interest, right? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Oh yes, yes, yes.
From
And
the
then
first slide,
yeah,
so
it's
yeah.
crazy. So I think you also wanted to talk about like what we're going to call this podcast.
Oh yes, sure. Um, yeah. Do you have any ideas?
Uh, I'm not the best at coming up with names. I think,
So
yeah.
I have one idea,
Hmm.
um, but it's just like the website that I was gonna write about actually this sort of topics. Like it was gonna be on like finance and
Hmm.
performance. You know, because
Hmm.
like even if you want to do finance correctly, you still have to perform well in your life to do the finance correctly.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was gonna start a blog called Wealthy Notions.
Oh, cool.
So I was like, maybe Wealthy Notions or
Well,
something book related.
WealthyNotions is perfect. Love it. There's this book, Passing the Torch. I forget who the author is. And she talks about generating generational wealth. So wealth that transcends generations, or yeah, that transcends
Hmm.
generations. And so generally what happens, it's like, the first generation builds the money, the second generation maintains the money.
I know this. Yeah, I was gonna bring this up as a point.
Yeah, and then the third generation squanders the money, and it's just because it's just like, the first generation, these people would be like our parents, or they came from a country, or maybe not like our parents, but most generally just like, they come from a country where they're very poor and they see a lot of poverty and death, and they come to a new country with like 3 rupees in their back pocket, and they're like, okay, you know what,
Hmm.
time to roll up the sleeves and get to work. There, there's it's not like there's no time for excuses. There's just you can't
Well,
there
yeah, it's
you,
do or die. You burnt the bridge. Like you're in another country with no money. What are you doing?
you barely know the language. It's like you just you have to work, and so then these people work hard, spend less, compound their money, and then they just keep these habits going, and even though they have a little bit of money, they don't really improve their living circumstances a whole lot. They they don't they just keep saving more and more money, and then before, and obviously if you've been following along with compound interest, that money just blows up to unreasonable proportions. Now their children will have seen some of this, but they will not have known the hard life. They'll still be like,
Hmm.
we're okay, we're not swimming in money, but we're okay, we can
Hmm.
do what we want, we can eat what we want, we can wear what we want within reason. So they maintain the wealth, they maintain their parents' wealth, and their kids they know nothing but the good life. They're like, oh, we have, you know, I just know. And then they, so they don't really learn any of these habits of like spending, spending money reasonably, living within your means, and they squander the wealth. Anyway,
Mhm.
this lady talks about how to avoid that. And essentially,
Mhm.
this was a little bit of a tangent to make this very small point. She says that wealth is a thing that happens last. Really, the things that happen before wealth are your health,
Mhm.
spiritual health, not financial health, spiritual health, physical health, your relationships with people, and your community. That all those things is what bolsters your financial health. So yes,
I
I,
agree. I mean, it's yeah.
I like this idea of wealthy
No,
notions.
I really liked that. It was that was. I'm so happy that you added that.
Hmm.
It's kind of like the whole body, mind, soul thing that you should do every day type thing. It's just if you want to simplify it,
Hmm.
it might even be do something for your body, mind, soul, and relationships.
Yeah, exactly.
That's that.
Yeah.
Because the relationships, like you have with family, love, this type of thing, that's like something
Hmm.
no amount of wealth can ever really get you.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. And ultimately, the whole reason for wealth is to do things with that wealth. Um,
yeah,
Presumably, right?
I guess. But some people might be doing things and then end up with the wealth. Like they're being
Exactly.
productive and then they just
Exactly. It's not like the goal is to, get the wealth. The wealth is like a byproduct of the life you live, or so they
yeah.
say. Yeah, I like the idea of wealthy notions. That's cool.
Okay.
That's awesome. Yeah, and
Yeah,
then
I think that's simple and it makes sense. Like think,
yeah,
think.
great. That's good.
Okay.
Okay.
So I guess we'll. Anything
Yeah.
else to add?
No, I think I'm good. Yeah, I'm looking at the time here. I've kind of I
Okay, okay.
I
We can always add it in the next one.
always add it to the next one. Okay.
All right.